And what I saw was, um, I saw what you always see. I saw a bunch of trucks. I saw a bunch of cars. I didn't see anything different. But within me, in an inner state, I had moments of great beauty and softening. It was a very beautiful experience where I realized I'm alive and I'm seeing this, and this is a gift of perception. You know, I'm laying words on it. It's a nonverbal situation. Uh, these trucks, these moving parts. There's a poignant quality of the sun, of us, civilization. We want to strive. We want to create things. We want to make our heaven on earth. We're not doing that great. And there's this poignant quality to all that of saying, yeah, this is very, very beautiful in a way. And that God, in spite of that, is able, the Christ in me can say, yes, I bless you, my son. You have made a bunch of stuff. You've done a bunch of traffic and you've got some stuff going here. But you know what? You can't escape from the Father. You can't escape from God. You can't escape from heaven. Even though you're on the interstate, you can't escape. And so the trucks are there, and I'm going, it's just an event. And it was often very beautiful. When I could soften, it was beautiful to see like canyon walls of sheet metal, let's say, of trucks with big advertisements plastered on them, and their wheels rolling, and understanding the transmission and the gears and the diesel fuel and the noise and intensity. Now this is an intensity that we've created that's a dull intensity, not to be preachy, but compared to the love of God, compared to the intensity of the miracle itself of breaking through. There's a white hot intensity that melts through, cuts through all of my issues, problems, grievances, whatever. It cuts through in a wordless way, in an imageless way. We recently did this trip out east. We went to Connecticut to Joanna's folks' house. Her dad is 91, her mom's 93, and we didn't know what state of health they were going to be in. To be honest with you, we thought that they might die, and that this actually, or her dad especially, because his health had tanked really badly, and because it's a good distance away, there's no doubt that we wanted to see her dad, see her mom, and plus they do a family reunion every 4th of July. But we didn't know the nature of this 4th of July. We didn't really know how this thing was going to turn out. So before I get into that, let's do this as a point of orienting me is today's lesson and some of the concepts in this presentation with lesson 354, which is today's lesson. We stand together, Christ and I, in peace and certainty of purpose, and in Him is His Creator, as He is in me. My oneness with the Christ establishes me as your Son, beyond the reach of time and wholly free of every law but yours. I have no self except the Christ in me. I have no purpose but His own, and He is like His Father. Thus must I be one with you as well as Him. For who is Christ except your Son, as you created Him? And what am I except the Christ in me? There are powerful metaphysical implications in this that I think are very helpful in understanding, let's say, what my goals or purposes, me personally, this thing here, sitting here, for this trip. I was going to be sitting in a car for a long, long time. It's 1,200 miles away. So it's 1,200 miles there, 1,200 miles back. We're going to visit her parents, do the family reunion. That's a big shindig. There's like 4 days of people basically drinking, eating, and cutting jokes and sitting around and staring at each other and doing yard games. There's not much metaphysics going on there. In fact, I'd say the only metaphysics that's going on is whatever animating principle moves bodies in space. Because nobody wants to really talk about anything. It's not the time, it's not the place. And, for most of us, or for many of us, it's never the time or place. This was no exception. Long story short, though, just to cut to the chase on this, we did not know what the nature of it was going to be. Joanna and I set as an intention to have a happy witness, not of her dad struggling, people groping and grasping at meaning in life or how to orient themselves in the case of, extreme sickness or discomfort and all that kind of stuff. Let this be a family reunion, and that's it. Let's let it be a family reunion. It's a decent prayer. A friend of mine one time said he had this prayer. He's putting a deck. I thought this was fantastic. He was putting a deck on his bedroom in Boulder, Colorado, and he goes, Lord, just let this be a deck. In other words, when you're in this process of so-called spiritual seeking or trying to understand the truth or bringing meaning into your life, you recognize that everything is a lesson. Let's put air quotes on that. Everything is a lesson. And sometimes you just don't want it to be a lesson, right? You just want to go through the business, or you want it to be, in the Course in Miracles terms, a happy lesson, not one of those tough ones. Well, that happened. We had a happy lesson. Her mom and dad made radical recovery. They both were energized beyond anyone's expectations. There's no doubt about that. They enjoyed themselves more than anyone would have expected. So what happened here? I even asked her, I've said this in other places, I asked her brother, my brother-in-law, I said, did this go the way you thought it was going to go? And he said, yeah, it went pretty much like it went. And he filled in the blanks and he told me the details that so-and-so is going to bring this and that, and we're going to meet here and there. I said, oh, really? A month ago, you thought that your mom and dad were going to be great and they're going to have a good time on the porch and they're going to be doing their scotch and water toasts to old age and all that kind of thing. He says, well, no, actually. We didn't know if they were going to be alive. We didn't know if dad was going to make it. It's a reveal of the way we re-engineer the miracle. We don't, in a way we have filters to keep the miracle from happening. I mean, and I'd say that for me anyway is one of the things I really want to work with is the filters against miracles. So quickly back to the lesson. What I hear here is the continuous sort of the good news and the bad news. The Course gives us the hopeful, loving, beautiful, expansive reality that we are. And yet it says, well, let's put it this way. It gives us sort of some news if we're willing to read, not even between the lines, but we just really, really see what it's giving us. And it's saying, my oneness with the Christ establishes me as your son, beyond the reach of time and wholly free of every law but yours. My oneness with the Christ, that means that Christ, the Christ in me, or, and forget prepositions and words and understanding of this. That particle, that spark, that radiance, that luminous aspect of reality, that luminous reality of the Christ that lives in me, that establishes me as the Son. The body does not. The mind does not. The mind and body do not play in this. So that when we're going for the miracle, when I'm on this trip, we try to understand how this is playing out and how I am privileged to be in the bleachers, looking at the miracle or participating in the miracle, and how that event registers on my perceptual machinery. We stand together, Christ and I, in peace and certainty of purpose, and in Him, in the Christ, is His Creator. In Him, in the Christ, is His Creator, as He, the Christ, is in me. We are a model, a simulation of the very relationship of God with the Son, the first and original, primal, perfect, extension of love. We're a model of that. But because we're a model of that, and it's being sort of literally mediated by our senses, that's how we're reading it. That's what this whole course is about, is working with the senses to touch reality. The course doesn't change reality. We don't, in a sense, no pun intended, we don't make miracles happen. We don't change reality. I don't change the future. I don't change the past. But my anchoring my perceptions in the Christ that's in me, anchoring those perceptions in the Christ in me, meaning suspending what I'm thinking about what's unfolding. I suspend that. I have a sense, I have a judgment. Those are the judgments, the grievances. I have a sense of what's unfolding. Suspend that and allow this, just allow it to be the simulation of perfection that it is. And it's necessary to have forgiveness for me to perceive that, because obviously so much around us, it's actually, the simulation is actually designed to be separate, to be different, to be the opposite. The perceptive world is designed as an escape from that perfection, ironically, or the ability to make our own separate perfection. So some of my goals were, there are overt goals, which is the health and comfort of Joanna's parents, and a good family visit. Then for our safety in the vehicle, of the car and of us, of all these kinds of moving parts meaning the health of the parents, the health of us, the health of her family, all these different moving parts which can manifest witnesses, which do manifest witnesses. And sometimes those witnesses shock us into the real, they shock us away from delusions. They can do many, many things, always to enlighten us, always to bring us to the truth of what we are. That is our assumption going forward, that God didn't place us in a hell, that God placed us in something that we can discover heaven. This is the purpose. I spent much time as I could bring to it comfortably, allowing an environment and a softening in the environment. And the environment is an interstate, with noise, and, it's hot, and trucks, and, the usual drill. So I softened my view on that. What I generally found was, when I was able to bring myself to it and just say, as an inner message, I'd say, okay, I'm in this. God didn't want me to be in hell. He wants me to be in heaven. He wants me to discover heaven in this world that, quote unquote, I have created for myself, and to realize, no, you have not. You may have created something that looks like interstate traffic, 18-wheelers, trucks, construction cones, hot weather, road stops, potty breaks, food issues, whatever it is. It's an environment. It is what it is. It's just a happening. And that's where I say flatten it out, and say, it's just a bunch of stuff. That's all it is. I don't know what that stuff is. This is course. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I don't have any interpretations for any of it. I don't have any interpretations about my tiredness, my awakeness, the performance of the car, the conditions of the road, this person merging into traffic, this person cutting me off, me not seeing someone. I don't have any judgments about all of these things. I'm not looking for anything other than what God wants to show me in this. And what I saw was, I saw what you always see. I saw a bunch of trucks. I saw a bunch of cars. I didn't see anything different. But within me, in an inner state, I had moments of great beauty and softening. It was a very beautiful experience where I realized I'm alive, and I'm seeing this, and this is a gift of perception. I'm laying words on it. It's a nonverbal situation. these trucks, these moving parts. There's a poignant quality of the sun, of us, civilization. We want to strive. We want to create things. We want to make our heaven on earth. We're not doing that great. And there's this poignant quality to all that of saying, yeah, this is very, very beautiful in a way. And that God, in spite of that, is able, the Christ in me can say, yes, I bless you, my son. You have made a bunch of stuff. You've done a bunch of traffic and you've got some stuff going here. But you know what? You can't escape from the Father. You can't escape from God. You can't escape from heaven. Even though you're on the interstate, you can't escape. And so the trucks are there and I'm going, it's just an event. And we go through the process and I spent, I don't know, I don't know how much time. I don't know if I'm generous with myself, anywhere from 2 to 5% of the time that we were driving across, actually in the practice beyond just saying the mantras. In other words, I'm able to actually get to softening, get to this. Sometimes I did it while discussing it with Joanna. I said, I really want to see this softer, and I'm doing it as I'm talking now. I'm emotionally and sensually going through it, but because we're in a car together, to ground it in reality, I'm sort of giving a play-by-play with Joanna, just describing trucks, musings on the road, musings on traffic, musings on what we're doing here, why we're here, what we expect, whatever comes to mind. I would go through this. So it's a moving meditation, enough said. We get there, and I'm going to say that once we get to Connecticut, can't lie about the intensity. The intensity's there. This happens all over the place. And the same thing is true of the family reunion itself, just being with all these people. Because it's no time to sort of space out and be, so-called what I would consider like, contemplative or miracly minded or whatever you want to call it. And just be in it and keep one hand on this Holy Spirit and what the Course suggests in how to be present in these circumstances. And frankly, whether it's the interstate or the family reunion, it's no different than any other time. Uh, there's a general sense of being in the reality I'm always familiar with, and then there's a periodic sense of focusing beyond that. If I remember right, when I was on the interstate, I'm cruising along. Um, there was a sense of gratitude for intensity itself, and also a sense that intensity is in context. The the traffic and the apparent dangers and the construction cones and all these kinds of things scream at me to like that they're saying I'm real, I'm real, I'm real, I'm what's there, I'm all there is. And yet I look at it and go, well, I've got to have confidence, aka faith, that I'm not going to wreck and that some truck isn't going to squeeze me off the road and all these kinds of things. And I've found that those remarkable protections are there. But you know what? I think that they're there all the time. All of it happens, then I'll focus and say, well, this isn't people being in space, it's me. This is all me. Okay, the whole thing. That girl over there that I don't know, and them and them and them that I've seen 2 years ago or whatever. It's all myself. As an example, I guess you'd call him my brother-in-law, starts telling me about some stuff, and he's he's describing some relationship he has with his sister, and he's talking about a brain operation she had, some benign tumor, and all this. But the language could have been applied absolutely directly to a kind of an amalgam, a combination of my mom and my own sister, of the difficulty he had in the family and the mom's benign tumor and the operation, or not his mom's, but his sister's benign tumor and his alienation from his mother. And, so there are these different things where it was different and yet the same. Different, like different people, different situations, different circumstances. But the, um, the intensity and the pain and difficulty, and yet at the same time, attraction and interest that he had in the drama of it. You know, you could see that the drama was important. It was really, he had a lot of identity tied up in it. It's not, I'm not being derogatory. I'm just saying it's part of what this world is. I identify with these things. And I say, well, see, I'm a victim of this, or I'm a hero in this, or I accomplished this. And so he's telling me about the situation. And I recognize this, you know, this in this simulation, or whatever you want to call it, this world that we're in, this life that we lead. I was I was being given like this information because I've had a question about my mother. You know, Joanna mentioned, you know, you should forgive your mother, which is not a new thought. Why? She didn't do anything terrible. She's just my mother, you know. But so there needs to be forgiveness there without the psychology. There needs to be forgiveness there because, you know, as long as I have an interest, a fascination, as I was talking about with my brother-in-law, a fascination with keeping my mom on the hook for what she did or didn't do or what I might have thought about this or that thing. If I keep her on the hook because it's good entertainment, um, that's an obstacle to the miracle. It's an obstacle to the holy instant. It's an obstacle to me knowing who I am. I insist on keeping her out there. And so I'm talking to my brother-in-law, and he's giving me these kinds of information, which I can then wonder about and discuss. Other issues come in, even with my daughter was talking about some of these things, and I light up, and I hear issues that are enlightening me about maybe how I've reflected back the impacts of these things. It's a house of mirrors, right? It's a house of mirrors. And just, I'm trying to just be, it's not like I can grab onto any of those particular reflections or images or thoughts and make them meaningful or useful. Just trying to be aware of how these things go. The people who are going here really didn't know if it was going to be a festival or a funeral. They didn't know if it was going to be a family reunion or if we're all going to be in black clothes at the church or at the grave or whatever, because their dad really tanked. His health went very, very south, very, very fast, and they were all very, very worried. Well, because miracles have a substance in this simulation, in this reality, so we just said, let him and his wife, because she's 93 and he's 90 or something like that, and let him be comfortable. Let him be comfortable during this thing where everybody's going to be sitting around and talking and chatting and jabbering, and music's going to be going on and all this stuff. If you really did a cross section on people's attitudes not long ago, I mean 2-3 weeks ago, they would have said, "No way, no way he's going to make it. He's going to be on a stretcher if he's there at all." Well, he's not on a stretcher. He's there until 10 o'clock at night. He's still doing the scotch and water toasts, he does with his wife, 93, 94, 95, 96. And then they've got some little prayer, chant, mantra that they do. I don't know where he came up with this neuro-linguistic programming thing that he does with his wife, but they really want to be alive, right? In the physical body to see their family. And I'm sure that there's some sense of dread at leaving this place and fear. The point being that, wow, I'd say he recovered. He's 10 times as energetic and attentive and functional as any of his kids thought he would be. Some of them are in their 50s. But anyway, none of them thought that he would be functional. And he's very functional, very attentive, laughing, enjoying. You can see the reflective, there is a reflective look on his face as he muses about the generations. But, they changed his medication. And as soon as they changed his medication, wow, everything just went boom. It's great. Everything got better. It's my moment, right? Because as soon as I say it's about him and it's about that family and it's about meds and it's about, amounts of meds or appropriate use of medications, if that's what I think this is about, then I miss the miracle. The whole thing avoids me. I have to. It's about me. It's really about me. 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 It's my world, and this is me as an old man. It's me dealing with sickness. It's me dealing with death and temporality or whatever. It's and those kids around him, the siblings, they're aspects of this, and they're all there to shine a light on who and what I am. And if I judge them, say, superficial, or whatever it is I want to say, or they should be into this, or they should be into that, or this thing should happen, um, I'm missing the opportunity to learn who I am and to learn what I am. There are three essential events. The first one was I sat with I'll be as brief as I can. I sat with my brother-in-law at the house where we stayed for the 4 or 5 days we were in Connecticut, and no great deep conversations. We have some political conversations, but he shows me an episode of one of these miniseries things that are on TV called Yellowstone with Kevin Costner. He had the whole series. He loves the series. He could only show me the first one. I took this as the voice of God, and I watched Yellowstone as an idea for something, a theme of something. And not to go long on it, because I could do a whole episode on the symbology of Yellowstone alone. I'm going to say it's about mercy killing as, oh my gosh. The guy who wrote Old Man and the Sea, he said, as advice to writers, you have to kill your darlings. That was one of his friends. You have to basically, in other words, you have an idea of something lovely, an idea of something wonderful. It's got to go. I have to be unsentimental about my attachments when I'm writing or I'm creating something, and just look at it for what it is. Don't get too attached to the stuff that's in it. And in that scene in Yellowstone where Kevin Costner is in a truck wreck, it's the very first scene, and he puts his horse pets his horse and strokes him, does the horse whisperer thing, and then shoots the horse in the head, kills it. You're going, oh, I know what this is about. And it's a rough and rugged look at the very difficult questions and problems of development, Native American culture, our treatment of Native Americans, Native Americans' urge for expression, the loss of their culture, the disturbance that we put it mildly, on their culture, the whole hellhole that is what we consider our history of expansion out west. That's what the whole thing is about. I think it covers it pretty well in many ways. So that was the first thing, Yellowstone. The next one was I'm at the Chicago toll booth. I've already gone to this. I picked up a ticket in Indiana, or actually I went to the ticket booth. They didn't give me a ticket. I end up at the toll gate, and I can't get through because I don't have a ticket. Well, so that's a scene, and we've talked about it in other places. Suffice to say, that's not my strong suit for rising to the occasion. And I sort of had a meltdown or melt apart. And did I abandon the Course in Miracles? Did I abandon that awareness? I did not abandon it, but I was appreciably unable to be in it very well. I didn't abandon it. I was doing the practice, like I said, I'm looking in the rearview mirror, noticing that no trucks are pinning me into place. And so I go through this process at the toll gate. Joanna points out there's a help button. I get help. The toll gate goes up, and we go through. So I had an opportunity at that moment. The lesson there is Holy Spirit is not central to this body-mind. Holy Spirit happened in that case in Joanna, or in the help button, or in the person on the other side of the help button. The Holy Spirit, the miracle, the intervention in that is outside of my body-mind. Now, does that mean that I'm getting saviors from without? To this body-mind, absolutely yes. Saviors from the outside. I couldn't handle it. I was undone. But in terms of the sonship, or the Christ that's within me, The Christ that's in me is similar to the Christ in all of the elements in the scene. So when I go through that, there's a resonance of the Christ in all these. And if I can relax enough to allow, I need do nothing. If I can relax enough to be in that situation, then a miracle, the holy instant, can unfold. The trucks do not pile up. That was an anomaly. Or maybe I just looked panicked and they were scared of backing up behind me. I don't know. But I get through there and I walk away with the lesson that I'm cared for regardless of what my perceptions are of the situation unfolding. In other words, I lost control, but control was still there in the form of others and other witnesses to that care that happens at that moment. Okay, the third piece is we're in Minneapolis. And the third piece was a very intense confrontation, and it's not even confrontation. My son-in-law, long story short, I'm talking like this, drives him nuts. And he didn't want to hear it. And I've had this experience before, but it created a very sort of very charged environment. It wasn't oppressive as much as charged. I could feel it. My daughter and I are talking, and we go over the top with exploring ideas and wordplay and different kinds of things. I'm not here to fix my neurosis. I'm not doing the course to fix my neurosis. I'm not doing the course to even become a better human being. If I learn those things along the way, hooray, that's great. But I'm here to find the truth. And the truth is a separate phenomenon from all the good and bad things that might happen or might not happen. So the son-in-law has his meltdown, throws the room into silence. And what I did there, I did the same practice I did when we were on the interstate, which was, it's a phenomenon. I'm in it. There's nothing to push back. There's nothing to resist. He is who he is. And at the bottom of what he is doing is a call. I can say it's a call for love, but as I've realized it in the moment, his call for love is love itself. Even though he's having a meltdown, I had a meltdown, right? At the rest stop. He's having a meltdown, and that meltdown is the call out to something else for love. And so I saw in him my own criticism of myself, my own complexity. I don't really like being complex, but I've spent a lot of my life trying to be complicated. I've got to be honest. I felt like that was something I needed to do to not rot in a chair for the rest of my life. Something that I saw in my family of origin in Illinois in the Midwest. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to take that path. And so I've gone in rebellion against my roots, what I perceived as my roots, which seemed slovenly to me. Now, my son-in-law is in that state. He's me. And he wants to push back. And so with my daughter and I chatting, talking, it angers him that he can't engage. He can't be there. He wants to engage. There's a lot of things. The analysis, it's not necessarily paralysis, but it's not necessary and it's not called for. Suffice to say, I relaxed my guard. I relaxed it. I realized that if someone is to quote unquote blame for anything that resembles tension or difficulty, it's me. But why? Because we're all in this, we are all this together. We're not in this together. My daughter, Joanna, my son-in-law, and myself, the table, the environs, the circumstances, the moods, the personal histories, all of it is a great stew that comes together to make this present moment of intimacy that takes the form of intensity. So those are the three pieces. Now, in those pieces, there were other things that happened, and they connect and interconnect. Uh, in one instance, I don't know that I'm going to be able to tie these up uh, causally or relationally. I'm having a conversation with another brother-in-law. Joanna's got, 6 other siblings. And I'm talking with him and his wife, and they're discussing their own son. And they are mirroring back to me exactly, in a different context, in a different setting, exactly the same concerns, worries, lack of control, um, lack of orienting themselves, of mystery, of not knowing how it's going to turn out with their son. They did not know how it was going to go. And so I saw it was played back at me. And as soon as they started talking and I heard this messaging about their son, I realized that this is me. This is me. She and her husband and the son who isn't in this conversation, he's not there physically. Suddenly I'm in there. It's Joanna and I, and we're discussing my son, and we're in this in a different way, from a different timeline, from a different uh, dimension even. It's coming back at me to give me more information. And then I'm there as like a voice of, I've already been there, brother-in-law. Don't worry. It works out okay. It turns out okay. I can tell you that. So I'm in this dynamic of talking with a past concern of myself, but a future concern of theirs, etc. So I have that moment of melting into their story melding into my own, and realizing that we're always in this melting of stories. So that was a sense of the closure. Very beautiful. Now I'm in an Indian restaurant with my son. Very nice Indian restaurant in Minneapolis. I can't remember where. Maple Grove. And I don't know what was going on. I don't know what I said. I don't know what the cue was. But I sort of get from him the full weight of what caused me the concerns in the front end, that I was talking about this arc we're talking about. And I was worried, concerned, as was Joanna, we're concerned about displacement. And I get the reactive sort of death stare. You know how you have the blue screen of death on your computer where you go, oh, I'm getting glyphs and messages I've never seen before, and you go, oh my gosh, I mean, it's like, did this whole thing just melt on the inside? I had that from my son at the Indian restaurant. And it startled me into a realization that, no, Phil, yes, miracles happen. You're that future self looking back, but this is still dynamically going forward. This is part of you. So I get this death stare, or not literally, but it was figuratively, like an ice bath, where I wake up out of whatever la-la land I have of thinking that I'm in this full arc of poetic wonder that resolves itself in a certain way, realizing, no, Phil, you don't resolve this until truth is fully blossomed. It's not like, you get in the buffet at Morrison's and you end up with a piece of fudge cake and you go, wow, that was great. That's not the miracle. It might hit you like that at one point, but I'm saying that there's a fullness and a richness that goes forward and forward and forward in the miracle. So we're at the Indian restaurant. That was a shock. So that's the thing. And then, wow, I had a situation emerge the next day, and I'm in the parking lot. Joanna and I are packing it up, and now we're going to go stay at my daughter's house. That was the scene of this deal with my son-in-law. So that there were, in Minneapolis, we had 2 venues. One was my son's apartment, and then we went to my daughter's apartment. I'm standing in the parking lot. We're packing up. A kid comes up. He goes, wow, man. Biophysical health concern A. Whoa. What is going on? And I'm what are you doing? And he goes, hey, you need to do this. If you don't take my advice, that's your problem. And so I realized quickly when he started talking this way that he is he's got some sort of psychosis. I've run into these people before. That's not the point, okay? That I'm dealing with a psychotic. That, you know, because he's a human being and he's making real observations. But again, this was an outpicturing of my own, I'd say maybe vanity or fear-driven criticisms of myself. And that was a wake up. That was ice water on me. Not what he said as information, because I could easily stash the information and go, okay, well, buddy, so what else is new? You know, I mean, you need to go to a psychologist. You know, I mean, I could handle it in many ways in this world. But when he came up with that stuff, this is miraculous because it is an anomaly, because it is intense. It really didn't emotionally bother me. But as a reflection of the sonship, as an interaction, it said something about what I'm getting back from the world as a witness, as a picture. Now, I'm not going to sit around and say that I've got these nightmarish witnesses because I've got this negative state of mind. I'm not going there. I'm saying that all of this is schooling. All of this is learning. All of this is miraculous. It's all the holy instant. It's all this messaging that comes in for my benefit. Now, I go to my daughter's apartment. Immediately after that, I relate these things to whom? To my son-in-law. I tell him, and he goes, man, where are you going to let that blankety blank tell you what to think about yourself? Forget it. Says, you know what? My mom has had biophysical health manifestation A all of her life. You know, it's so what? And I go, okay, well, you know, so he gives me that, and he basically balls me out for even entertaining that voice. And I tried to tell him, I said, well, I'm doing this practice, and I'm receiving it as a certain sort of a witness, you know, as a witness in this simulation that we're in that's geared towards informing me of the truth of what I am. So, you know, I mean, you know, because we had the meltdown over, he doesn't have a lot of tolerance for that kind of woo-woo. So, but you see that I have the kid in the parking lot, and I see that two sides of the same coin, the two sides of the same coin, the harshness of the outpicturing, and then the forgiveness or tolerance of the outpicturing in the form of the kid in the parking lot, in the form of my son-in-law, much the same way as I had the conversation with the brother-in-law about, and his wife about their son, mirroring over into my own shocking realization that this is an ongoing process. We're in a polar world. We went to the Mall of America. And I can't say much about the Mall of America other than it's well worth going to, I think, for anybody. Every particle, every square inch of that place is designed to take a person out of themselves so that they're not with themselves, so that they're caught in a brouhaha, they're caught up in a hubbub of activity, much as life, much as the whole thing that we've created here. Whether it's the interstate should lock you into certain kinds of tension and anxiety, or relationships with people can lock you into psychological warfare or defense or whatever it is. The Mall of America is designed to hurl you into their environments, whether it's, you know, roller coasters or crazy rides, or, and well, they got some very, very cool rides. I was very impressed by a Mall of America as a testimony to our desire for paradise, our desire to create a heaven here on earth. Go to the Mall of America and find the heaven on earth that you can buy with not that much money, a little bit of walk from the parking lot, eat some of their food, look at some of their stores, get on some of their rides, which I did not. I don't want to get sick. And just recognize that that's what this world offers. That's the beauty of this place. It's not that different than Mall of America. And anything in this world that transcends the experience of being on a great ride or going in a store and finding what you need or finding things you didn't know you needed or getting tired legs or needing a place to sit down or getting a good cup of coffee or a bad cup of coffee or a good meal or a bad meal or being overcharged or undercharged. All those things. That's what this place is for. That's welcome to the world. That's what we're about. And it's, again, like the interstate experience, with that softening and allowing this to come in and say, I am this. There's my brother wearing the Balenciaga, whatever the hell the name of that fashion outlet is, wearing those shorts, that crazy shirt, and his son, a matching deal, and he's got his weird beard and man bun, and there's all this kind of stuff happening. It was actually quite touching, even beautiful to see us, me, my presence, the expanded sonship of which I'm just a chunk of flesh in that play, in that stew. Walk around, bump into each other, look for thrills, be bored, get tired out, go home, rate the experience. It's all there. It's all there. And that's what we're about. And you go, well done. Well done. Just know what you've done. It's pretty cool that you've done this thing. It's beautiful. And in the same way with the tete-a-tete, the face-off kind of, in air quotes, that I had with my son-in-law, just receive it. I'm talking to myself here. Just receive this as life. It's what I came here for. I didn't come here for anything else. This is why I came here. And the sum total of the whole thing is, what hand brought this to me? It's not a devil. And this isn't damnation. We might have hoped it was. We might have wished it was, but it's not. This is a good thing. And the learning is there, and that Christ in me doesn't need learning, doesn't require learning, doesn't want. But it's along for the ride with me, in its oneness with all these things and elements around me. It's in all those things inside of me, bringing all this out. But I had an overarching realization, judgment, also, of myself as hating myself. It's a bit of truth that, it's harsh, and it was difficult to realize that all my so-called problems, all my so-called difficulties, all these things, they're all this voice, the echoes of the voice for God saying, Phil, don't hate yourself. Phil, don't hate yourself. Don't hate yourself. Don't hate yourself. And the flip side of that is love yourself. But that's difficult because the hatred is easier because there's so much problem. There are so many limits delineated in the Mall of America, in an interaction with a son-in-law, or people here, there's tiredness, there's heat, there's exhaustion, there's sensate dissatisfaction, there's all these things. But so it's easy to say, don't hate that, don't hate yourself, don't hate these experiences, because they have a hateable aspect that's the more easily, because of the nature of things, it's more easily accessed by us, and thus our defense, our fears, our defend attack, And the Course is reassuring and consoling and saying, I know you think you did this number on yourself. You didn't. It didn't happen. Inside of this, there's a gossamer nature to these things that you don't like or that you find hateful, in my case, about myself. There's a gossamer quality to my judgments about myself. Everything from, let's say, talking too much, biophysical problem A, B, C, D, E, tiredness, weariness, my own obnoxious voice that I hear, the voice of my dad, Phil, the hammer got rusty, whatever it is. I've got this thing that runs in my head. And wow, it just showed up. All that stuff. The rusty hammer, my dad, my mom, her biophysical problem, ABC, my son-in-law, all of it. You realize no matter how deep you go, it's infinite. And there's more of it. And it just keeps on coming. And all of it is an echo of the voice for God. And I said, I'm going to let this digest. I'm going to let it cook and cook. And I'm here to say that I think that in terms of miracles or the holy instant, there's a deeper aspect of my experience on the trip of just trying to go through this as an exercise that is another level of what I would consider miraculous or a happy witness. Larger, grander, softer, more diffused. It's not the crack punctured in the cosmic egg. It's more like a light coming dimly from a veil beyond, and illuminating it eventually. So it's not the harsh crack in the cosmic egg, as in that experience I had with, let's say, a guy putting on the storm door, Tony, or things like that. It's deeper than that. So there has to be this willingness to let the miracle, let the holy instant gestate and reveal itself. That's what I got out of it. Thank you very much. That's about as much as I can bring to it. I appreciate you. Bye. So that's this is a kind of a report from, I don't know, some sort of a front line. We're on our way to Minneapolis to visit my two kids, and I'll continue this process of trying to see, I guess if anything, I want to see the anatomy of God in a way, if I can be that bold to say it. I guess they say, show me your face, Lord, kind of a thing in Christian circles. But, I just would like to see the anatomy of God, meaning this world. The trees reach down into the ground with these incredible root systems. Trees reach down with their roots, the plants, the grass. You see the physical reality of this place and the interconnectedness of it is so, it's infinite. It's effectively infinite. And only God is infinite. In other words, like this, I got a pen. It's limited, runs out of ink. It's got a lifespan. The grass, lifespan. Trees, lifespan. The tent, the poles, whatever, this stuff, this picnic table I'm sitting at, they have a lifespan. But all of these things, in their interconnectedness, interwovenness, the table's trajectory as a thing that falls and rots and decomposes in however many years, in whatever time span it is, it will at some point be unfunctional. It won't work. But the components then are absorbed by this thing, and then they're resurrected in this thing in time spans that are way, way, way beyond a human lifetime. If I look at it as the body of God himself, or the side of me that I want to know, the expanded side of me as the thing that ran away from home, so to speak, the sonship, I have to be aware of these things. And as I become aware of these things, I become aware of myself, and contemplate the infinity of these things, and the cyclic, and the time beyond time. It's a time that folds forever and ever and ever and ever and ever into a future, out of a past, with a present time that's like so fleeting and almost useless as a now, the now that we want to strive for, the now that the Course says is where Christ is. So what is that now in this moving, all these moving parts, traffic, family reunion, and sitting in the backyard? What are the moving parts? Where's the now in this? Yeah, it's just right there. That's it. So the now is not embedded in the time itself. Yeah, the now encompasses all this. The now is things that are over my head, things that are beyond me.